2012, Karen was the keynote speaker at the Health Congress Flower of Life, south of Moscow, organized by the Russian Association of the Raw Food Movement and Naturopathy. She was a featured speaker for the London Veg Fest 2013 and the Toronto Raw Vegan Festival of 2013. Karen is a pioneer presenter at the Woodstock Fruit Festival since 2011 and was a featured speaker at the 2013 Raw Living Expo in Sedona. Her new book is entitled, I just lost it, Raw Vegan Recipe Fun for Families, 115 Easy Recipes and Health Tips for Energetic Living, published in January of this year. Karen writes about raising families for Get Fresh Magazine, Veg World Magazine, Vibrance Magazine, Super Raw Life Magazine, and Eternity Watch Magazine. Joining her is her daughter, Gabriela Ranzi, has been primarily on a raw and vegan diet her whole life. She felt a connection to nature and especially to animals since the beginning and never wanted to eat them. Gabriela has a global environmental studies degree from Clark University and now lives in Colorado working for the environmental nonprofit organization Turtle Lake Refuge. Gabriela wants to share her passion of life, health, and happiness with you all. So it is my great honor to introduce Karen and Gabriela Ranzi to the stage. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much. I'm Karen Ranzi, and for those of you who have been involved in the raw food movement for many years, you may remember Gabriela and I from the Raw Mom Summits. Gabriela and I spoke together on one called Raw Mom Cooked Dad. And that was pretty much our situation when I started raw food 2 decades ago. How many of you feel or believe that what you eat and how you live your life today is going to affect you in a decade from now? Because that's how I felt when I realized that raw living foods were extremely important. And my experience and the reason that I changed from a vegetarian, highly cooked and processed diet to a raw food diet 20 years ago was because my son had asthma, chronic ear infections, and multiple food allergies the first 3 years of his life. And I almost lost him twice. He was hospitalized, and it was really quite scary for me. I had tried the medical model. That didn't work. I had tried alternative therapies. Those didn't work because I wasn't looking at the cause of the problem. I was looking for a cure. Because as Margaret Mead says, it's easier to change your religion than to change your diet. And that is often true for most people. Once I realized what I needed to do, I started doing a lot of green juicing. And I introduced a lot more fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds into our diet and gave up all the cooked food. And 11 months later, my son was completely healed. And so this was very dramatic for me. Even though I had it in my family, I ignored it all those years growing up. My grandmother on my father's side had asthma and emphysema in the early 1920s. And she had found out through a book called The Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret, a German professor. This is a book that came out around 1918. And she read this little paperback book, and she transitioned from a meat diet to a vegetarian diet, and then to a vegan diet, and then to a diet that was very high in raw living plant foods, and raised my father that way. And this is going back into the early 1900s. I grew up with her living in our house a lot. My mother did not believe that we could get protein from a diet that was high in plant foods. I learned a lot differently later on. But I grew up with a lot of problems with cystic acne. I had cystic acne for 25 years. And I would ask the dermatologist, does it have anything to do with what I'm eating? And the dermatologist said, it has nothing to do with what you're eating. You can continue to binge on as many cheese doodles as you want, and it won't affect your skin. And since I used to binge on cheese doodles all the time, my skin was always broken out, and I went every 2 weeks to the dermatologist for hydrocortisone shots. When I went vegan and gave up refined sugars and dairy, my skin started to clear up. When I went raw 20 years ago, even the scarring disappeared. And so this raw living plant food, not only did it heal my son of his serious life-threatening asthma and mucus condition, it also healed me of my skin condition and digestive problems that I was having. And so this diet got me very much driven, and I became very passionate about it and started to teach people about it.